Hi everybody, it's Sensational here again, and I thought I'd just do a little video as to why I think you should play one of the games I love playing, and that is Guild Wars 2. So you will have at least heard of ArenaNet's Guild Wars 2 if you're into MMOs, and if you played Guild Wars 2 then you almost certainly have heard of Guild Wars 1, and if you're like me, you'll have played both. So this is just a short video as to why I think Guild Wars 2 is worth giving a shot if you haven't already. So, just to start off, Guild Wars 2 first came out in 2012, which is roughly about a year before Final Fantasy XIV was relaunched as A Realm Reborn, and about 1 year after BioWare's Star Wars The Old Republic, which are two games I've also played quite a lot of. But this is Guild Wars 2. So, like I said, I've played both Star Wars and Final Fantasy among other MMOs, such as RuneScape, World of Warcraft, Star Trek Online, and probably my favourite and most life-changing in its own strange way is EVE Online. But all of these have their own place in people's top lists of MMOs that they play, and rightly so. They're great games in their own right. But today, let's just try and narrow this down to why Guild Wars 2 is worth your time. So, in my eyes, Guild Wars 2 is a very underappreciated game that does not get the recognition it deserves. So, I've played the game, I don't know, I've been playing it on and off for the last 5-6 years. It's just one of those games that I always find myself coming back to. It's got great lore, mechanics, community, and a nice bonus to someone that may not have the time to commit to a game. There's always conscious of how much these things cost. There's no subscription fee. You buy the game, you play it. So I'm going to dig a bit deeper into a few topics, right? So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the lore, then I'm going to go through the features, community, expansions, and just time commitment. These are the 5 main things that I think are worth considering in any game that you play, but these are mainly the 5 that I think you should consider that would help you come to the decision to play this game. Okay?
So firstly, looking at the lore and touching upon that, the Guild Wars universe has a very rich and vibrant backstory going back to the original Guild Wars 1 that was released in 2005. Even though Guild Wars 2 is set a few hundred years after Guild Wars 1, it carries on much of what was first established in that game and expands on it in many ways. The universe of Guild Wars 2 itself revolves around the threat of elder dragons and the dangerous influence that they have on everyone in the game. So you ultimately find in the story that you end up joining an order of heroes with some overlapping and intertwining of your own personal story, which is all based on your character, whether it's a Char, a Nord, a Sylvain or a human. It has its own influence that is then drawn into the greater or grander story of the game, and you ultimately, in the base game, have a final stand against an Elder Dragon. And this is then further greatly expanded on through the Living World additions that the developers have added into the game. But the underlying core theme is always the Elder Dragon influence, whether it's direct or indirect. And having played through the main expansions in Guild Wars 2 and the various Living World questlines, I can say that this game has crafted a very rich and immersive world to adventure in. So whether you are revisiting old areas from Guild Wars 1 such as Ascalon, Guild Wars 2 has returned to these areas and filled in what has happened during that time period between the two games. So it's not a case of something was introduced in the first game and they've just kind of left it by the side, they don't touch it, just have a faint reference. You actually do have reason to go to these places and see what the changes are. And one of the biggest developments in the whole game's lore revolves around the Char race and how they're now included as a playable race, which then also further ties in with the Elder Dragon threat that I just mentioned. So from being a race that you cannot play, being mostly your enemies in the first game, to now being a playable race, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there's very good reasoning behind how they are included as a playable race and on the same side as your regular characters such as the humans and the Nords. But going beyond the main story and expansions, the game's lore is also elaborated on upon, with some references to in-game items similar to how Elder Scrolls games work, particularly Skyrim with its books and statues, but it's just not to that numerous or I'd like to say frequent, but it's just not as many instances as Skyrim, because you will find games like that will have a lot more of the substantive lore hidden away in these optional items that you can pick up should you choose to. But if you're like me, you will often find that you're visiting the Guild Wars 2 and 1 Wikipedias, which are very well maintained and quite extensive in the information that they cover, and it's very helpful to read those to just fill in some gaps or get a better understanding of some characters that you come across in the game, some of the backstories between the different groups and organisations that there are. But in short, to describe the universe of Guild Wars 2, I'd say it certainly has its fantasy elements, but it's not your normal, usual sort of like high fantasy sort of style. So it's not like World of Warcraft where there is magic, but here you've got also technology such as guns and rifles that work in their own quirky ways, but as well as a hammer, which is, well, hammers, and you'd be surprised to see how they work. But it definitely has its core roots in fantasy, with a bit of like steampunky sort of elements thrown in depending on what specialization you use, but it is a very, very much so a fantasy game, and a very good one at it. So moving on to the features of the game, there's quite a lot, and most of these are fairly standard for an MMO, but for something such as mounts, Guild Wars 2 has a nice twist on these. And there's also the added feature of login rewards that are actually really good, with there being an account-wide unlock that applies to your account at the end of the 30 days. And the way that the Guild Wars 2 presents this is actually quite encouraging to log in each day without making it into a chore. But like with any game, there's always an end game, and in this game you've got raids, which are 10-player, highly skill-intensive PvE encounters. Just like in World of Warcraft, you're going through a set high difficulty dungeon, and you'll find in Guild Wars 2 that there's actually a high bar to get into these, but you shouldn't be put off by that, because there are actually groups that will help you complete and teach you how to play these. So there's not a hard lockout for these, it's just a way to make sure that everyone has a good time when they go through the raids. But moving on from that, and you've got something that's quite similar to raids but on a much smaller scale, and that is fractals. And these are special mini dungeons that are only available once you reach level 80, but these scale in difficulty, and each level increase is also separated by a set of tiers. So each tier increases the type and quantity of the item drops that you will get, but the increase in difficulty will also add things such as higher enemy health, their higher damage output, as well as additional abilities that you'll need to keep an eye out for. But you would find that fractals are one of the main popular sources for obtaining ascended equipment PCs, and in my view, as with many, is probably one of the main things that keeps Guild Wars 2 players going each day, because they always want to be the best of the best. But other than that, you've also got the mastery system, which is an account-wide progression system that again is also available once you reach level 80, and after you reach level 80 and unlock the mastery system, any experience gains that you would normally go into your character level are instead invested into your mastery level, and these provide you with, again, account-wide benefits, often bonuses to your playstyle, such as your mounts, mount speed, strength and such. But you can obtain these in two ways. Well, actually it's a two-part process. So you have your main mastery experience level, but you would also need mastery points to invest once you reach that level, and there's different levels for depending on what you're wishing to unlock, with again different points costs. But you should not worry, because the amount of points available in this game are in the hundreds, and they're quite varied in the ways that you can obtain them. It can be from simply completing a certain part of the story, to defeating certain world bosses, or just going up to a mastery point and clicking a button. It's very easy to get these, and you shouldn't feel that it's going to be a chore to unlock them. And just to touch on achievements, just like again many other MMOs, there's an achievement system, but you'll find that you've got different rewards based on your tier of achievement, often progressing in difficulty, giving you fancy titles or unlocks such as Ascended gear at the end of that. And you will find that they can scale in complexity, but there's always someone there to help you with it anyway, so I would not worry. And every 500 achievement points you obtain, you unlock a reward from the achievement window, and sometimes these can also add account-wide bonuses. But other than that, one of the biggest features of Guild Wars 2, and something that is highly regarded for, is its PvP and world versus world content. So the PvP, although I've not actually played it, I'm not much of a PvPer in MMOs, it is one of the best in the way that you would find everything is quite even and balanced between the players. There's no like rock, paper, scissors sort of flow to it. You could very well beat someone up easily now, and then the next game they could reverse that and destroy you instead. But it is based on your player skill, and there's definitely no pay to win in this game, which again just makes it fantastic. And then going to the world versus world, it is basically server versus server, conquest, capture a zone, battleground. I can't explain it any better than that. It's just, it can become mayhem. But you will find, if you join one of the Discord groups for your server, that you will be given all the help and guidance you need to make sense of world versus world. When I join it, I get confused for the first couple of minutes, then look at the map and piece things together, join the Discord, and then I'm going and I'm having great fun. And again, you'll get quite good rewards, and again, Ascended equipment gear or crafting materials for Ascended equipment. So it's definitely something to do whether you want to play and just casual small mounts or intense stuff. There is a lot of content available in this game for you to embrace. Okay, and now just moving on briefly to the community. The game has a very friendly and active player community, and it's probably one of the most welcoming and helpful communities I have ever come across in an MMO. And trust me, I've played games like EVE Online where the community is out to kill you. But here, whether you're a new player or returning after a break, there's always many players out there in the game that are willing to give you a hand. Whether it's to try and defeat a tough NPC, complete some events, figure out your class and items, whatever, you will get that help. I myself have made some great friends with this game, and that were more than helpful and happy to help me level up my characters, and it's just something that I was quite taken aback by. The community in this game is so different from any other community I've played in with an MMO. And what's even handier is that you'll find, like I said, that there's lots of Discord communities out there, and they will always try to make sure that you have a great time and enjoy your experience playing the game, because I think the way the game works is if you're having fun, then everyone else around you is having fun. If you're going to cause trouble and be a troll, then you will be called out for it in the game, and people will stay away from you. And this is one of the games where you have a long established guild community, like World of Warcraft of old, so your reputation can go and influence other players. So if you are tagged for a certain guild and you're causing a bit of trouble, that will reflect badly on the guild, and you will eventually get pulled up for it, either by other players or your own guild. So there is a lot of encouragement to be nice, be friendly, and just have a good time, and help others have the same experience. But in short, I'd say there's something very special about the Guild Wars 2 community, and it is definitely all for the best. Okay, moving on to the next topic, which is the expansions. And just to cover this briefly, the game is now on to its third main expansion, and that's called End of Dragons, and that's going to be releasing on February 28th. So that's just a few weeks away from the time of me making this video. And each expansion has added a ton of content to the game. Whether it's lore, mechanics, classes, abilities, whatever, each expansion has had a huge impact to the game, and it's always been for the best. You get massive amounts of explorable land in the game, the map grows, there's huge lore dumps, it's just great. You will find yourself just going into rabbit holing on lore and things when you explore into the expansions, especially after you reach level 80 on the base game, or before so. Just once you hit the expansion, you're going to love it. But you'll find that there's also what's called living worlds, and these what started off as like a dynamic time run bridging sort of story event that would fill the gaps between the expansions. But due to some limitations, the developers have changed this into something that will be ongoing, in the sense that you have a new episode for your living world for that week, and then it expands and so forth. And that has been the case historically, with the developers actually giving out the living world segments for free. And if you've missed it, you'll find that you can get it back at a special event like I did recently, having obtained half of them. But otherwise you would need to purchase it with the in-game premium currency, which again is not for pay to win. It's mostly just cosmetics and character slots and quality of life things, such as just crafting tools. But it's by no means pay to win, and it's very far from it. But again, just touching on the expansions, you buy the game, you buy the expansion, you buy a living world content. You do not need the living world content to enjoy the game. It enhances it. Same with expansions, but I would definitely recommend, if you play this game and you love it, to get some of the expansions, because it will only make things better. And again, there's no ongoing subscription. You get the expansion, and that is it. And now just to move on to the last topic, it's quite a small one, and probably a very important one anyway, and that is just the time commitment to this game. Because there is no subscription model, this is definitely a game that should cater towards people with limited free time or other commitments. So if you like playing MMOs and losing yourself in a fantasy world, then give it a go. You can drop in when you can, when you can't. You can play for a few hours this week, a few hours next week, not touch it for 3-4 weeks and then come back, and you will not feel like you have been forced to play the game because you've got in the back of your mind, oh, I'm paying for this, I must make use of this, otherwise it's going to waste. You've bought the game, and that is it. You play when you can, when you want. There's no pressure to devote countless hours of your life to this game, and I think that is a very healthy trait for this game, unlike many others, especially in the times that we live in, because you can find people are addicted to games. They will not leave rooms, they will just stay there all day, whilst their whole life will collapse around them. Here, there's no commitments. You log in, you have fun. You log out, you go do something else. Nothing there to say, okay, I've got a 30-day subscription, I've got a 6-month subscription, oh, this is going to run out, I need to do all of this before the subscription runs out. And I find, speaking to people, that is one of the ways that they feel trapped into some games. Like I've seen it with World of Warcraft with one of my friends. He found that he had a month subscription and he needed to do so much within that month, and it was just driving him insane, and it was driving us insane trying to talk to him about anything other than World of Warcraft. So the time commitment or lack of for this game is amazing. You can play it freely as you wish, when you wish.
So to finish off there, based on what I've just covered, I am hopeful that you will give this game a shot, and who knows, maybe we might bump into each other while we play the game, especially with the next expansion dropping in a few weeks' time. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please think about leaving a comment or subscribing, and I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks again.